Most people, including us car guys and gals, rarely provide specific examples when we bitch and moan. Today I'm going to do exactly that by providing you with two names, Chevrolet Blazer and Nissan Pathfinder. Think about what they both used to be and think about what they are today. I would argue the Nissan committed more sins against us car guys and gals because of a certain selection of a rather important component that is the bridge to making these vehicles do what they're supposed to do. Well, apparently Nissan, they want to make amends for that faux pas and put it in a new wrapper. So our job today is to see if we accept that apology. Yes, there is an entirely new wrapper we need to discuss. We'll get to that later. First, we got to focus on the biggest change here, and that would be underneath the hood. And no, it is not the naturally aspirated 3.5 V6 we've experienced in many other Nissans in this application. 284 horsepower, 259 pound-feet of torque. That can drive either two wheels. For the avoidance of doubt, that would be the front wheels. This is transversely mounted architecture, or all four wheels. The big change we are focusing on here is how that power gets from the engine to the wheels. Now, in most Nissans, that's accomplished through a CVT, continuously variable transmission. This was a scourge of the earth that was introduced to this country by, I believe, the Subaru Justy back in the late 80s, early 90s. And there are a couple of benefits to a CVT. There are less moving parts. There's no gears in there. It's basically a rubber band connecting the engine to the wheels. And that translates to less cost to manufacture, meaning less cost to buy the car, and better fuel economy. So that's why manufacturers like Nissan or Subaru use them. However, things have changed. Now there's transmissions that are 8, 9, and 10 speeds. So there's another way to accomplish better fuel economy and have the benefits of a real geared transmission, and that is what's happening here. So this is the first one ever with a 9-speed transmission, but the first one in a long time with a geared transmission. Now, I'd love to tell you how this drives today. However, there is a global embargo on this vehicle, so I can tell you about this on June 9th. So come back then and we'll talk about how it drives. The rest of the vehicle is similar to all other Nissan crossovers we've experienced recently, including the previous Pathfinder, meaning struts up front, multi-link in the rear, stabilizer bar for front and rear. The wheels are interesting here. The basic wheel is an 18-inch design, which would be better for off-roading, but the car you and I are driving is 20-inch wheels. Now, there are three other rather important aspects you and I need to discuss as it relates to the architecture of the 5th generation Nissan Pathfinder. First and foremost, no, it is not like our beloved Nissan Patrol. It is not body on frame. It is still a unibody construction. Number two, the all-wheel drive models, believe it or not, they have a limited slip differential. But no, it is not like the Porsches that we've driven recently. This is a brake-based system. And then third, the towing. This is pretty impressive. So there's only one engine on offer, and the most basic version of this vehicle will tow 3,500 pounds. No great shakes there. However, there is a towing package that is on offer that's fitted as standard to the one that you and I will be driving, the fancy Platinum model. That one will tow 6,000 pounds because it has a different trailer hitch that comes fitted as standard. Now, I would argue the change that is secondary to everything we just discussed would be the interior. And here I'm going to say something rather shocking. It takes after the Nissan Rogue. Normally, that is a horrible thing. However, as we learned when we drove this generation of Nissan Rogue, a couple of months ago, it is now really good. Why do I say that? Because all of the tactile feel has been changed. All of the UX design has been changed. All of the overall design of the vehicle has been changed. And that now cascades up to the Pathfinder. So all of the soft touch points, specifically the door panels and the dashboard, that makes the jump to the Pathfinder. And then specifically with the UX design, yes, there is a tacked on screen here. However, there is a volume knob. There is a real tuning knob. Even the HVAC system is still there. Separate buttons to run the HVAC system, not something that is only buried in the screen. And speaking of screens, there are 3 screens here. Yeah, there's a big screen in the center. There's a big TFT screen in the dash right in front of you that can be changed and provisioned based on the information you want to see. But most importantly, there is a 10-inch head-up display in a Pathfinder. And then something I am increasingly finding myself filing under the heading of UX design, the shifter. Why? Because there is one. They resisted the temptation of doing push-button transmissions or rotary controllers to make more space in the vehicle. They were able to do a real shifter. Now, when I say real shifter, it's not like a real shifter that's, say, in a BMW M2 CS or a Porsche 718 Cayman GT4. It's a shift-by-wire kind of a deal, so it's the best of both worlds. You have the tactile feel of a shifter, but there's still storage underneath the console for people who are more practical than me. And speaking of practicality, there are captain's chairs in a Pathfinder for the first time. But what I find especially fascinating for an OCD freak like myself, that center console that sits between the two captain's chairs, that can be taken out without the use of tools. And why is that important? Well, the vehicle that you are looking at here, believe it or not, is shorter than the vehicle it replaces. The direction that most OEMs go is they make these vehicles longer so they can package more people and more dogs. We're going to spend some time talking about that because it does impact the way the vehicle drives. So we'll talk about that in the coming full first drive review. But in terms of cargo, really no impact there. It's 16.6 behind the third row, 45 behind the second, and 80.5 with all three rows down, which is why you'd want to pull that console out. Okay, so with that, let's finally make our way to that new wrapper. And here, there are a number of moving parts going on. First and foremost, you look at this thing, at least from the front, and you say, yeah, that kind of looks like a Nissan. But then you look at it from the rear three-quarter, and you're like, wow, that thing is really attractive. And here you kind of need to see this in person. It looks very different from other like mid-size baby buggies out there. Like you look at a Highlander, that looks very long now. You look at an Explorer, that also looks very long now. And we kind of already discussed, this has been made shorter for a couple of reasons, some I can't talk about right now because it impacts the driving dynamics, but really packaging as well. And I would argue it's more of a visual trick. This vehicle looks a bit smaller, but the way they use the lines, specifically around the belt line of the vehicle, it has this more, I don't want to call it modern, more postmodern look. When you think of postmodern in architecture, this is kind of like the automotive equivalent to it. I have to say, Brother Alfonso and the team have knocked this one out of the park. Now, I fully understand that the following statement is completely subjective, yet I would go so far as to saying that the 5th generation of Pathfinder is more attractive than the current belle of the ball, the combination of the Hyundai Palisade and Kia Telluride. For the avoidance of doubt, those are still more attractive from a proportion-only perspective because of their length. This, it's more a combination of the proportions with a very unique daylight opening treatment, and then this use of tight lines that makes the overall design significantly more cohesive. Dare I say, it stands out in a segment of vehicle that's not designed to stand out. I'm not even mad at the huge Pathfinder lettering in the back because it kind of cleans up an otherwise barren wasteland. But something tells me if it were my vehicle, I'd probably take a chisel to those letters and pull them off. Which brings us to some of the color choices. Yeah, I had to go with the burgundy because it pops on camera, but there's this very unique gray, almost like the Audis we've driven, and there's a very unique green, as well as some other colors that work really well with a saddle interior that absolutely make the lines pop. Which brings us to the wish list. And here I can't really give you a lot because there's an embargo on pricing and an embargo on driving impressions. So the only thing I'm going to share here today is some of the bits on the interior, which I think is the most successful part of this design. It's the tactile feel I'd like to see changed. It's good, but not for what this vehicle is going to compete against. Yeah, the obvious, it's going to compete against Highlanders and Pilots and other vehicles like that, but it's also going to compete with some BMWs and Mercedes. I'm thinking a missed opportunity was changing some of that tactile feel that was closer to like a BMW X whatever, or a Mercedes GL whatever.
that's where I think the interior needs to go. That's the next logical step. And this is the point of the episode where I turn this around to you guys to opine in the comments below or via our social media, MotoManTV, all one word, MotoManTV, all one word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And with that, I do want to leave you with the logistical note that we are going to do a full first drive review of this vehicle on June 9th. Until I see you in the next episode, which will come before then, bis später.